Na zdrowie. Your friendly neighborhood Monomachos here, speaking to you from stately Monomachos Manor, back in the good old USA. Want to talk to you today about my thoughts, impressions about Russia, my recent pilgrimage, and I'm gonna ask for your patience. I've got a lot of notes here, and I'm going to try to make it as concise and as coherent as possible, but I'll be going back and forth. So, anyway, it's good to be back, as I said, but boy, did I have a wonderful time. Really did. Met some interesting people, and first of all, I've got to give major kudos to Father Ilya Gotlinsky, who runs Orthodox Tours. In case you don't know, and I'll put a link below, Orthodox Tours goes pretty much every year to Russia, but he organizes about 4 different tours a year, all Orthodox themed. He goes to Greece, Cyprus, Romania, Georgia, the Holy Land. I think this coming up year he's planning a tour of Byzantine Italy and also of Spain. I can't recommend Orthodox Tours enough. It's not only affordable, but it's interesting and it's exciting. And the people you meet will stay with you forever. The memories you have will stay with you forever. So, like I said, look at the links below. If you're interested, contact Father Ilya, and you will not be disappointed. Okay. First of all, I've got to say, or second of all, there's no way I'm going to do this trip any justice with this vlog or the commentary that's going to follow. It's just, or the written commentary, it's just not going to be possible. Russia is a land of contrasts. It's probably the most, well, it's the biggest country on earth, obviously, but there's just something about it that it just grabs hold of you. Winston Churchill famously said, Russia is, and I'm paraphrasing, a riddle, an enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a mystery. You'll never get it. But once you go, and especially if you're Orthodox, but once you go, you will never forget it, and you'll want to go back. This is my second time I've been, and Lord willing, I hope to keep on going regularly for the rest of my life. So, anyway, one more thing about Father Ilya. I've got to thank him. He's not only a great host and a great tour guide, but he's very understanding and he's very flexible. And that's most appreciated. Okay, let's just go in no particular order our entry. First of all, we flew into St. Petersburg. One thing I noticed, the security was very tight. Security was very tight once we got to Amsterdam. And then once we got to St. Petersburg, it was tight again. They take it seriously. I'll be commenting a little bit more about this. I was astonished by the cleanliness and orderliness and the fastidiousness of Russia in general, at least St. Petersburg and Moscow. Like I said, this is the second time. I didn't pay that much attention to it the first time because the first time 2 years ago when I went, I was just astounded. Wow, Russia, there's the Kremlin. Wow, Russia, there's Uspensky Cathedral, or there's the Cathedral on Spilt Blood, there's the canals. It's just, words cannot describe Russia. Photographs certainly cannot. You have to experience it. So the first time I was there, I was just, astonished. I was just walking around like, I was some hayseed dropped off a turnip truck in the big city for the first time, just looking around and, in bewilderment. There was a lot of construction going on back then. Okay. Not so much this time, but a whole lot of remodeling. I noticed a lot of remodeling. And that's, I guess, is why I noticed how clean everything was. One of the things that they do there is whenever they remodel a building anymore, they will put a tarp in front of the building itself that they're going to remodel, and that's a safety feature so that no debris falls on passersby. But interestingly enough, and I've never seen this before, the tarp will be painted with as to how the building is going to look once it's done. We saw this, for instance, in St. Isaac's Cathedral. You walk into St. Isaac's Cathedral, of course, you're bewildered. You just look around, it's this magnificent building, and you look at the transept over here, and you look at the transept over there, and it's like, but then you look at the transept over, it was the north transept, and excuse me, the south transept. I thought, wait, I can't walk there. It's an illusion. What it was they had dropped a giant tarp, which showed the south transept as it looks like and should look like, but right now, because they're doing remodeling to it, you can't pass it. But they didn't want to interrupt. They just didn't want to hang up a white sheet. Okay, this is just astonishing. Forgive me, you're going to hear that word a lot. You're going to hear the word astonishing and bewildering and astounding and remarkable a lot. So please forgive me. But the fact that they would go to such trouble to create this illusion that is pleasing to the eye, and not just at St. Isaac's Cathedral or any church that they were remodeling, but apartment buildings, palaces, office buildings, whatever, you name it. It was a very clean city, and so was Moscow, as I was to find out later. It was just fastidious. One thing I noticed is that the exchange rate was the same as it was 2 years ago, 60 rubles to the dollar. Now, some sanctions have been put on, unfortunately, and it got dropped to 67 rubles to the dollar, I believe. But that was before we left. Or that was after we left, excuse me. It used to be 30 rubles to the dollar, but when the sanctions were first applied, after the annexation of Crimea, it plunged to 60 rubles to the dollar. I gotta say, though, there was economic activity everywhere. I saw no homelessness. Well, one guy, but I think he was drunk. He was just lying down on a escarpment or something like that, and he looked well dressed. I think he was just drunk. I saw no homelessness other than that guy, and he may not have been homeless. And I saw far fewer beggars this time around than I did the previous time. Beggars congregate around the major church sites where they feel like there are going to be tourists. I found far fewer beggars this time around, and the last time I was there, the male to female ratio of beggars was equal. This time it was mostly old women. I remember seeing one man, and I believe he was a war veteran because he was an amputee. So, let's see, humidity was a problem. The first 3 or 4 days, it was humid. Nothing like what we have here in Oklahoma or what we were experiencing in the United States as a whole, but still, you don't go to Russia thinking you're going to experience humidity, but there was humidity. Again, not as bad, excuse me. There was just a lot of people there, especially St. Petersburg. The population of St. Petersburg, I believe, is 5.2 million. And they have an average of 5.1 million visitors a year. So tourism hasn't slacked off at all. In fact, we went right after the World Cup, and they estimated that tourism in St. Petersburg alone was going to be up to 8 million for this year, based on their models. That's interesting. Nobody was worse for the wear. Let's see. The people that were on the trip, I believe the most part were Orthodox, 1 or 2 exceptions, but everybody was delightful. We had a great time, and I think everybody was were troopers for the most part. We all, I thought, did well. A little bit of concern about the humidity some health issues from some of the people, but we soldiered on. And again, Father Ilya deserves much praise for making it all happen, and for taking the consideration of some people the concerns of some people into consideration. Okay, I talked about the economy earlier. I want to go a little bit more into it. It did seem better than it was 2 years ago. Again, I think this is an aftermath of the FIFA World Cup, which was an astonishing success by all measures. There was a hustle and bustle everywhere. People were going to and from jobs. I saw beautiful cars on the road. I saw ordinary cars on the road. And I noticed a lot of people were getting by on scooters. I saw a lot of skateboards. And it kind of reminded me of California, skateboards. But some people had these scooters which were fitted with, well, they were skateboards, but they were scooters. They had like a little thing, a little pole. And some of them even had lights on them, so you could use them at night. Mostly young people, but I saw some middle-aged people using them too. But I saw them everywhere. Cars. Didn't see too many motorcycles. I wasn't looking for them though. I saw a few. All kinds of cars, all makes and models. European mainly. Let's see. I want to say something a little bit more about the security. I noticed how they took it very seriously, not just at the airports, but at most venues. Like when we went to the GUM department store, which is right outside Red Square, you had to go through a security thing. And most of the churches, the tourist sites, you had to go through a security thing. The thing that you walk through at the airport. One day I was in a taxi, and I just happened to see 4 or 5 shifty-looking characters. They looked to be, they were quite dark. They looked to be Muslim or Caucasian, in other words, from the Caucasus. And all of a sudden I saw 3 or 4 cops just automatically show up out of nowhere, it seemed like. And they just ganged up on them, and I could tell that they were asking for their papers. Obviously, they didn't get the memo about profiling there, because they do profile, and they take security very seriously. And God bless them for it. So, the GUM department store, by the way, it's an old arcade. It was built during Tsarist times. And it's a gigantic arcade. It's probably a square mile in volume. And you go in there, and it used to be for the communist bigwigs and their wives, but now it's for anybody who can afford it. And you go in there and you see Christian Dior, all of these brands, these European brands that I'm just not familiar with, and they're everywhere. And they take up 3 stories. So, for those of you who are inclined to go shopping, that's the place to go. There was one place that had like all these gourmet foods and sausages. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. I'm not a mall rat. I don't like shopping, but I did walk through there, and I did enjoy it. Just window shopping. Okay, the people. What can I say about the people? Well, the first thing, let's just get them right off the table. The women are just absolutely gorgeous, beyond beautiful. Not only that, they're chic. They're just dressed to the nines. I saw some tattooing, some piercing, but nothing like you see in America. And, I didn't see any diesel dykishness, butchiness, anything like that. The women are just really very beautiful. And we got to meet one delightful young lady as we were waiting in line to go venerate the icon of Saint Matrona. This was on our personal time. A delightful young lady, pious, about 27, spoke some English, And we waited in line for 2.5 hours in midday to go venerate the icon. And we talked about why she was there, because there were hundreds of other people there. And it was warm, very warm. And she said, the church is our soul. Anyway, she made the effort to go there, but she was going to be late to work. We said, can we get you a cab? And we got her a cab, and we took her to her work. And it was the Kempinski Hotel, if my memory serves. And she says, here, why don't you haven't had lunch, why don't you get some lunch? So we did. 10 minutes later, she comes back out, and she's not dressed like a pilgrim anymore. Now she's dressed like a professional businesswoman, supermodel. And boy, was she just astonishingly beautiful and professional. And she was obviously some kind of manager at the hotel, because she was ordering people around. But yet, I was thinking, here she was spending 3 hours, 2.5 hours, standing in line in the heat to go venerate this icon. And there were people of all ages doing that. One of the things I noticed about Russia is we went to church every day, to a different church every day, and every day there was a service going on, and every day there were people attending those services. Not a lot, but throughout the day there were just people just wandering in and out, lighting a candle, worshiping. It was brought a tear to my eye. It really did. And the fact that there were a lot of young people doing this really was something to write home to Mother about, if you ask me. Okay, the people are very resourceful. Uber has taken off there. Lyft has taken off there. If the sanctions are biting, I couldn't tell. I'm sure they are. Like I said, though, how the plunge in the ruble happened 2 years before. It had stayed there. I think the people are more or less just acculturated to it. But I don't know what the unemployment rate is. I don't know. But I didn't see any vacant buildings. I saw a few vacant storefronts, but they were all being remodeled, and they all had an arenda sign on it, which says for rent. I saw quite a few of those, but not that many. Most stores were open and occupied. I saw a whole lot of pharmacies, even within blocks of each other. They're called apteka there. Went to a few of those. Anyway, the people are very resourceful, and they're very kind-hearted. They're very polite and magnanimous. One of them, a concierge at our hotel, one of our pilgrims had a health issue, and Yevgeny was his name. He spoke very good English, or passable English, and he found a specialist for this person who spoke English. This was on a Sunday, mind you, and he actually walked her to that clinic, which is about 2.5 blocks away. This is service that you're just not going to get in America, at least. They went above and beyond, and one of the things that affected me in a negative way was some of our docents, our guides, were really concerned. They said, why does America hate us? We're not communists anymore. What do you say to that? After the second person said that, I said, well, we don't hate you. That's why we voted for Trump, because we like Russia, because we don't want war, because Trump is a builder. He's not a bomber. Of course, obviously Trump has been backed into a corner in this regard, and he's had to employ some sanctions because of a false narrative. Still, it's clear that he's a very reluctant warrior, anyway, excuse me, laundry. So the people were just very kind, and some of them just had an angelic appearance to them. And the only thing I could think of is, that's because they're in church. They go to church. The grace of the Holy Spirit is there. That's my take. I said about the beauty of the women. The men are very virile, and they don't take gruff from nobody. Why are the millennials there a far more attractive lot than what we see in the West? Well, maybe because they don't eat GMO foods there. I don't know. I'm at a loss, but the differences are remarkable. I don't know what the testosterone levels of the men are there, but here in the West, they're just plummeting. Based on what I could see by the overall physique of the men and their manner in walking, and some of them, their height or their build, I could say that they don't have any problems with T levels there. I didn't see any of the rates of obesity there that we have here in the West. And of course, I'm 20 pounds overweight easy, so I'm not in any spot to talk, but I can make an observation. Okay, let's talk about the church a little bit. A couple of days ago, I put out a video by Black Pigeon Speaks, and in the middle of that video, he talked about what he believes is the animus towards Russia, and he says it's because it's a white Christian conservative nation. Now, Black Pigeon, I don't know who he is, but he's an agnostic. He's not a believer. Okay, but he noticed that. Stephen Cohen, a longtime leftist, on a couple of his videos, he openly says the animus is because Russia is a Christian country. Now, this is from a man who's Jewish. I assume he's secular Jewish. He wrote for The Nation magazine, I believe. Very left-wing. His wife is Katrina vanden Heuvel. Anyway, there's something there. Now, that was my opinion a long time ago. But for these secular people to say that, and for me to see it with my own eyes, I'd say, yeah, it's got to do with the resurgence of the church. And not just any church, but the Orthodox Church. Not that there's not problems. There are problems, I'm sure. Let me talk a little bit about some of the churches. I don't know which was my favorite church. In Kronstadt, there's a St. Nicholas Naval Cathedral, which is just beautiful. It's built on the model of St. Sophia. I believe not the same size, but maybe a little bit smaller. It's beautiful. And when we were there was a service going on. They have 3 altars, and it was the one on the right, and there were people standing there, and some of our women went and just stood there. And of course, the men, me, we were just walking around, just kind of looking, taking notes, thinking, why can't we do this here? Why can't we do that there? But, in the story of Mary and Martha, Mary chose the better part. It would have been better if I had, and so eventually I went and I joined the other congregants there. And even though it was all in Slavonic and I didn't understand a word, I was at peace, and it was beautiful. I'm not going to do this trip justice, folks, so please forgive me. Another of my favorite churches was the one at Yesenevo. Yesenevo, I can't remember how to spell it. And that's one that's built in this not very good area of Moscow, which the people there built themselves, and they built it within 5 years. And it's based in a Byzantine Sicilian style. I believe the Church of San Apollinare in Sicily, which was from the 8th century, I believe. and the mosaic work is just beyond beautiful. And is it my favorite church? I keep on saying it's my favorite church, but it's not. I mean, but boy, it's in the top three. It's just lovely. And we had our lunch in the trapeza in the basement, or the first level, and it seated about 40, and it was just a delightful meal. And I thought, how neat. They have their own kitchen there with the trapeza attached to inside the church. Admittedly, there's a narthex in between them. I highly recommend it. Maybe my favorite one now is Sretensky Cathedral in Moscow. Boy, when we were there 2 years ago, the main basilica was not finished, but it was now, and it is mind-blowing in its beauty, just mind-blowing. One of the things in the narthex we saw, was the frescoes of parables of Christ, the prodigal son, the good shepherd, things like that, or the landowner who finally sends his son to the tenants and they beat him up and kill him. And it's the creativity that comes in this. And there I saw a baptistry, an adult baptistry. This is Moscow, by the way. Yesenevo and Sretensky are in Moscow. St. Nicholas Naval Cathedral is in Kronstadt, which is in the Gulf of Finland. Excuse me. You've got to go there. Now, at that monastery, Sretensky is a chapel that has a mock-up, bad word, but of the Shroud of Turin on the wall. And if memory serves, 2 years ago when we saw it, there was another church in Valam which also had a Shroud of Turin. So the cult of the Shroud of Turin is very profound in Russia, or at least it has its adherents, which I'm very glad, by the way. I'm very happy. Here's the downside of this. It's very easy to fall in love with the church. It's very easy to fall in love with the ritual, which the ritual was just very beautiful, very moving. I suppose the seduction could be that you could forget Christ. But, you know, it's easy to fall in love with the church there. Let's leave it at that. And I think if you fall in love with your mother, the church is your mother, you're going to love your father too. So the grace of the Holy Spirit, I think, will keep things in the in their proper order, respect. One of our people said, why can't we have this in America? That is a good question. We have a lot of problems in America. The Episcopal Assembly, you know, the St. Nicholas Shrine. Oh, that got me about the St. Nicholas Shrine, folks. I mean, here we can't even finish that. And yet, that Sretensky was done in 3.5 years. When we went to Sergeyev Posad, one of the old cathedrals there, the Uspensky Sobor, was done in a year, 500 years ago, in a year. Okay? Don't get me started. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. Let's leave it at that for now, and I'll go on to part 2 later, if you don't mind. Thank you.